So I had somebody ask me about body mounts. How do you mount some of these bodies onto some of these trucks and buggies and cars and anything else that you want to mount bodies to? There's a lot of different ways to mount bodies. A lot. But some of my favorite ways are to use these. These are magnets, okay? There's a whole bunch of different sizes of magnets you can get. I'll link to these in the description below. This just happens to be like a variety pack. They were actually fairly cheap, and you get some good sizes, all the way from these big ones to these little guys. Now, probably don't use these little guys on the bodies, but I've found other cool uses for magnets. I love magnets. I do. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with them. But for these bodies, let me just go ahead and show you how I've mounted some of this stuff. Okay, so for this one is still on the hinge. This is a hinged one. I've just left it this way just because it's my girl's. It's got rear wheel steering. It's pretty straightforward. I don't do a lot of work on it, so I'm not having to constantly pull the body off. I get really annoyed by having to pull screws out to get the body off, but I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet, and just other priorities. But this one is one of the more elegant solutions for a stock or fairly stock truck. It's basically using the original mounting points. You pull out the little pin here. You pull out this little guy, and then you put in a screw. I will link to these screws in the description as well. You can get them on Amazon. There's these ones. I probably should have some longer ones. These aren't very long. You can see here. Okay. It could be a little longer. That way you have more adjustability. You don't want them too long because then you can't get them low. But I basically just use the side screw them in, and then you mount magnets in the body itself. I use hot glue, not super glue. This particular truck has been damaged by these. You can see it screws up the paint sometimes if you're not careful. So there's a solution to that, and that solution is to use a strip of duct tape. And also, the larger the surface area you have, the better. So really what you want to do is have a larger surface of hot glue. And if you're using hot glue and you have multiple settings on your gun, don't use the hottest setting. You want to use kind of a medium or lower setting. That way you don't bubble up the paint or anything weird like that. This is from the magnets being pulled away, or the hot glue being pulled away. So again, the greater the surface area of the hot glue, the better. So usually I'll put the magnets, the best way to do this really, whether you're using screws or additional magnets, these are all using double magnets, but you'll basically put the magnet on here, the one that you're going to mount to the body, and then you'll put your hot glue on there, kind of get a good amount. Don't be too scared. You can put a decent liberal amount of hot glue on there, and then you just close your body, make sure it's lined up, and let it hold and cool it, and let it get completely cool. And then you can try to slide. Don't just pull it straight off, especially if you're using magnet on magnet. This is not so much a big deal on screws, but if you're doing magnet to magnet, you really want to try to get the magnet to slide off of the other magnet. You see, you don't just want to pull it straight away because that's the greatest amount of resistance. But if you can kind of slide it off, especially if you're not doing a hinged body like this and it's 4 magnets, you want to slide it off. And I'll show you on this guy here. It's the same way. See? And this one actually had a magnet pop off. So again, sometimes it's not the most reliable solution, but again, I'd rather deal with a magnet popping off every once in a while through repetitive. I'm constantly taking my bodies off, constantly, because I'm always working and doing videos and stuff. But and that's why I hate the pins, and I just want a quick, easy solution. But again, as the magnets go on, when you first mount them and you put hot glue on there, you want to try to slide it off if you can. Bring it off at an angle. Don't try to pull it straight away because it's going to pull out your hot glue. But you can see that basically it's a simple solution of throwing the magnets on the body. You want to make sure you kind of test fit a lot when you're doing this. And again, I'm a big fan of test fitting. So you'll basically get your 2 magnets, maybe put a tiny bit of hot glue on the backs, put them down onto your frame, and then see if it mounts to where you want your body to be. Does it hit? Do you need it taller? Maybe, again, it's all about test fitting. You can see on this particular one, these are actually mounted on screws. I mounted the magnet onto the screw. I used hot glue. You can probably use any other sort of epoxy as well. This is what I had at the time. It's a little loose and floppy, but it works. And again, these magnet size matters. If you've got a heavier body or you're really going to kind of bash it hard, you're going to want a little bit bigger magnet. This body in particular is not heavy, but this is a fast truck, so I really crush it a lot. And, or you've seen a couple of videos, if you watch compilation videos, that the body has fallen off before. So I probably should put a little bit bigger magnets in the front, or maybe add an additional magnet somewhere, a third. One of the downsides of using magnets, just FYI, if you're trying to stay very, very light on the top, is that magnets are heavy, right? Versus just a piece of plastic and a bobby pin. That's pretty light. But I like the benefit of the magnets. Some other cool stuff I've done with magnets is, like in this rig, I run my lights from my receiver to the magnet. There's the negative, there's the positive, right? And then my lights in the body go negative and positive. That way, when here we go. All you got to do is put the body on, and when the magnets touch, bam, you got lights. So that allows you to wire up your entire body with lights and wiring, and you can tuck it all in and clean it up all nice and have one spot, as long as they're all running through the set. You know, you only have one wire from your receiver. If you have two, you can do it on the front and back, right? So you have your static lights or your constant lights on one, and then maybe blinking lights or adjustable dimness or however on a second. And if you want to have even more, you'd have to come up with another set of magnet mounts, and you can have 3 different circuits of lights. Most people only use one circuit of lights, and they either have all their lights on or all their lights off. But if you wanted to have them in separate circuits, you'd have to have different magnet mounts for it. But that is super convenient. I don't have to pull this off and then try to pull a plug out for the lighting. So I really like that solution. Again, the magnets in the buggies is super, super useful, just because you have all these weird spots and you're able to like hot glue it. Someone just came to the door and I had a hand-delivered used Mini T. Interruption. We're gonna dig into this little guy. Supposedly it's all working electronics, and the only thing that's busted is it looks like the bulkhead. So we're gonna we got plenty of parts for these guys. We're gonna fix this. 60 bucks. 60 bucks. The parts alone were 60 bucks. Easy. You know, just the extra. He's got aftermarket shocks, the extra tires. We obviously need a body, but we got plenty of those. It's not brushless or anything crazy, but for 60 bucks, delivered to my house, doing it. All right, let's go. Continue. So some of the other solutions that I've seen are where you'll mount magnets, and these are box magnets or squares, which I don't go that route yet, or I just haven't. But you basically will put a longer box magnet along here and along here, and then on your frame rails or your, you know, any sort of mounting points that you might have. It's a little harder on the SCX24s because you don't have, most stock ones, you know, you don't have anywhere to really mount something like that, right? But if you're to do like a road car, right, you can mount it, this isn't the best example, but you can mount it directly onto the chassis and then put the magnets and you're good to go. So yeah, anyway, like I said, the big benefits of magnets, I really like being able to just pull the body on and off, run lights through it. And you have a lot of mounting point options. You can get very custom. Oh, let me just show you on the deadbolt. So on the deadbolt, like I said, we're mounted directly. I mean, you can't get much lower than a magnet mount on something like that, unless I mount it on the sides, but even then it's still magnet mounts. But yeah, you're super low. This is kind of using the original receiver tray, and it's just super dremeled down and cut down. I know it looks sloppy, but when you're pushing stuff real custom, you know, unless you've got some high-end tools or a 3D printer, and I don't have a 3D printer yet, but even if I did have a 3D printer, I would probably still just hot glue this stuff. I love hot glue. It's semi-permanent, which is good and bad, right? Because sometimes, well, like we just saw, they pop off. But again, part of that is just my fault. So another tip, if you notice, I don't have any duct tape on any of mine to get that big surface area. But like I said, if you were to duct tape across this thing and have the duct tape nice and secure to the body in a large surface area, then you can put your magnets on there, and there is highly unlikely they're going to just pop off, or they're going to pull the paint up off of your Lexan. It's going to stick, because just that little bit extra surface area really helps keep it on there tight. What I was going to say is on the body mounts, sorry, I keep going back and forth. When you mount it, if you're going to mount it to a slick surface, you want to score the surface, actually. And so I've had this issue with the hot glue on stuff like this guy here, where I actually have a piece of clear plastic that I cut out to be able to mount my Velcro onto, my hook and loop, and it kept pulling off of both either the plastic here or the battery tray or the old receiver tray. So I just took an X-Acto and you just score it. Just cut it up a little bit, make it nice and scratched up. It gives a porous surface for the hot glue to seep into, and now this thing will not come off. I mean, like I said, it's semi-permanent, so like worst case, you can always heat it back up and try to get the glue out that way, but I was pretty happy with where this was at, so I went ahead and scored it up a lot on here and on the servo tray, on the battery tray, or not the servo tray, the receiver tray and the battery tray, scored it up really good and got my hot glue, and it's in there. It's not coming off. If I need to get the electronics off or anything along those lines, I can always just kind of get a hot knife or even a hair dryer. As long as you're not going to ruin your electronics, a hair dryer just to heat it up, and you can slide that stuff right off. So that's the benefit to hot glue, in my opinion. It's better than like a permanent epoxy, but can be pretty close to permanent if you do it right. Like I said, this isn't scored. When I redo this, I'll score it. It'll take me 2 minutes. So again, mount your magnets to your magnet points, then put the second magnet on there, right? So you'll have your body side magnet on there and then put your hot glue on top of there. A good amount, not so much that it'll cover the next magnet. You don't want the magnets to stick together from hot glue. But if they ever do, you'll have to get a knife up in there, or X-Acto, or try to heat them up again and pop it off. But just enough to get it on there, and so that it'll kind of squeeze out a little bit. And then once you let that sit for a while and it's completely cooled off and dried, like I said, slide it off. And then you can take and do another round of hot glue around the edges. A little trick. When it's hot, if you lick your finger or dip it in water and then rub it around, you can get it real smooth. So I just did this one. You can get a nice big fat bead around there, and then it's going to be hot, so be careful, but lick your finger, get a little bit of water or spit on there, and you can just kind of push it around, and it won't stick to your finger. It's not sticky when it's wet at all. Just be sure not to burn yourself. But then you can kind of maneuver your hot glue and kind of mold it around your magnets. These, I'm pretty secure, are not going to come off again. If they ever did come off again, I would definitely go ahead and put some duct tape or some sort of larger surface area that I could glue to the whole front end and then put my magnets in there. Again, you're trying to reduce weight though, so you don't want to get too crazy with it. Anyway, this was supposed to be short. I'm kind of rambling. So as always, again, thanks for watching. I hope you found some of this useful. Like, subscribe, share. In the comments, tell me what your favorite mounting solution is for your SCX24 bodies, or even some of your larger stuff, but specifically because we're talking about SCX24s here, in your SCX24 bodies. How do you like to, do you like the pins still? Do you have a different solution besides magnets? I know there's a lot of other stuff out there, but I want to hear from you what your favorite is. So tell me in the comments. Until next time, smash them, bash them, and crash them, but don't break the expensive parts.